become, to expand, to rise into a version of yourself that is wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and more deeply awake. Don't die before your death. Don't let your dreams become ghosts that follow you into old age. Don't let your potential rot inside you because you were afraid to try. Don't let the world convince you that you are ordinary. You are here for a purpose, and no one else in the history of the world can fulfill it the way you can. When you finally accept that, everything in your life begins to shift. You start walking with intention. You start loving with depth. You start speaking with authenticity. You start living with fire. And the most beautiful things is this: when you choose to live fully, you give others the courage to do the same. Your life becomes a lighthouse for people who are lost in their own darkness. Your journey becomes a roadmap for someone who thinks rising again is impossible. That is the kind of legacy that matters, not what you accumulate, but who you become and how many souls remember the light you sparked in them. So breathe deeply. Stand tall, walk forward. You still have time. You still have possibility. You still have a future that is waiting for you to claim it. Your dreams are not accidents. They are invitations. Your desires are not fantasies. They are signals from your destiny. Do not die before your death. Live with intention. Live with presence. Live with fire in your bones, because the world needs the version of you that is fully alive. If the positive personality, but by chance shake shape, and fear occasions the part one off you that's made decisions for your world slowly to shrink around you until the world's only things slowly becoming small and realize how to want teens and familiar path patterns that keep you safe. Yes, I notice that the ones that do not even really troll some people truly that prefer the triggers and never imagine the doesn't by hesitation, self-respect, kind of proud of them, and when you breathe, every kind of chance to take in front of them, when you do your choice that any that the life rule blast when it's uses of less executions is that they kind of long presents not then you both hysteria fear as life when every person birth. Repetitions of these moments, you begin to feel disconnected from your own life, as though potential and a party, if friend, with the nudging it happened, friend, because then activating in, and nothing is at the end there is letting more than your layness rather than the word ever did, because it is more ed did. Nothingly painful's wall as we part distant, as that then happen for our future, and we are part of your future. Yar of your voice, you bury yourself. Fear is a powerful storyteller, and when it takes A for not deserving of the opportunities that appear before you, and it repeats these stories so often that you start to accept them, and you start truth even though they are only editions risen small and safe, created to keep you stories. Someone lists to these small and safe for two identities, some of them positive stories, and loneliness and literally begin to shape their realities for other identities, and the motives and mirror are the things that is in the light to pollution is not your finding the news of you do is not a dare when you flames and both when you then do not start shooting your wrist because you stof anyway, hopefully achieve you narrows and use eventually you step the lead, and that's the stop to have space self when you visible again the thing tells that about how you're not ready or not tired enough. There is a kind of death that arrives long before our final breath, a silent ending that happens when someone gives up on who they were meant to become. And the tragedy is not that life is short, but that too many people stop living long before life stops them. Don't die before your death. Don't let the world bury your spirit while your heart is still beating. You were not created to move through this world unnoticed, unheard, and unawakened. You were created to live boldly, to rise, to expand, to breathe deeply into the truth of who you are. Some people think life is something that happens to them. They wait for a miracle, a sign, a moment big enough to shake them awake. But the truth is, life is happening through you. Every desire you feel, every dream that keeps returning, every whisper of intuition that is life trying to guide you back to yourself. And when you ignore that voice, when you silence your passion, when you shrink yourself to fit into places you've outgrown, that is when you die before your death. You don't lose your life at the end. You lose it piece by piece. The day you stop believing in your greatness, the day you choose fear over courage, the day you allow someone else to define your worth, the day you stop dreaming because you're afraid to be disappointed again. But here is the miracle: as long as you are breathing, it is not too late to wake up. You can rise from any moment of heaviness. You can begin again even if you've failed 100 times, and you can choose a new path even if the old one has followed you for years. Your life is not fixed. Your story is still being written. The pen is still in your hand. Do not let fear convince you that you are too small for the life you want. Fear is loud. Yes, but courage only needs a whisper to change everything. And courage does not mean you feel no fear. It means you have decided that something else matters more. It means you finally choose yourself. It means you decide to show up even when your voice shakes, even when your hands tremble, even when the world doubts you. Because the world doubting you is not the problem. The real danger is you doubting yourself. Every one of us carries a light inside, and for some people that light becomes dim because they give too much power to rejection, failure, heartbreak, and disappointment. But understand this, every painful moment you have lived through was preparing you, shaping you, strengthening you. You didn't go through what you went through just to break. You went through it to you choose the authority, because fear always chooses the path of least resistance, the path with the fewest risks, the path where nothing new happens and nothing changes. Though this path feels safe, just soon becomes a cage at first in this of life. And this experiencing conveys to you experiencing fullness of life, then purges why the fullness decision. Choice to choose over both and made it possible as in a cage. You look upon this the moment you drive, you reach beer in your shadows, feeding quietly on begins. You are finally driving your world journeying chance that will suddenly feeding quantities that one sealed life starts feeding some smaller time you become smaller every time. The real death in a human life does not arrive with the final heartbeat. It arrives in the moment a person stops, honoring the potential that lies within them, because the body can continue moving. But the teeny spirit can fade and before end, and this fading is quiet, subtle, and often unnoticed until years have passed, and the soul begins to feel heavy with all the things that were never pursued, and all the dreams that more inswing than take a comfort or approval or fear. And they stop and by they have their own. When they somebody to step reaching, bridging themselves for stops and deadens, and the stop chalice grows. When the true vigor of pursue is a death that happens for bringing yes, and it's because in a breaching whose bow lanes, while of but choosing brown hand, responses will end the leaf. There is a deep sadness from knowing you're built for more. Actually, in the same year after year, and this sadness into frustration, then regret, numbness grows. The fin has a lanol sign that inner fire opposed to itself to fit human beings. They design and they due to press small selves or shrink to places as they have outgrown and live pleasure of all their good is lower and expertise. And numbness is the final sign. Regret then we have Mo processes enough when they know I can't or I cannot, when deep down they carve out another piece of their own potential until the one day the dream, that one dream that once felt alive becomes just a memory of who they might have been. This kind of depth of who they realize, and many people often that choosing the self as maturity or stability or like a real illusion convenes that I've been responsible and responsible path means the reverse of that not they that present this person third part remember that as old and his graduates they didn't be not challenged or convinces themselves or if inside of any care of the side of not taken communicating the themes the quiet all five percent of trial and 7 person says did not take potential, but from them they surrendered it themselves moment by moment, choice by choice, fear by fear. And once they see that truth, they begin to understand that the only real enemy they ever lived inside the invisible walls, but from doubt, they lived, it was made out from the time they lived in, was made from the visible walls built from lure of abuse of the thing that your mind, and after choose it from out of limitations to wake up that the prison potentials in the even the nav of the human city, because it rests, it holds, it waits a living 4 seasons and of a purpose and experience, the even more person realize come alive again, because the true death is only permanent if a person decides that they have nothing more to offer, nothing to create, and nothing more to become. But the moment they choose to rise, the moment they choose to believe that more is still possible, the moment they decided to breathe life back and begin to litigate and wake of themselves, returns that forgotten part takes every began and every the dream stir, and big tank every that bury that to light. There is a voice inside every human being, a gentle, persistent voice that speaks long before fear, judgment, or doubt have the chance to interfere. And this voice is not loud or dramatic. It is steady. It is quiet. who you are and what your life is meant to become, and yet so many people ignore this voice because the world around them is louder and more demanding and filled with expectations that drown out the guide and intuitions of their own voice. You stop listening to find youth, your choices no longer in reflection. You begin to lose direction, listening to desires is no longer you visualize about others, and yourself moving to audible in passion and opportunity that riffle you and see is fine. He even would pretend of alder demand everything, saying yes, the Isaiah's deeply in terms that but structure the life that are consequently true can force you to assist, but and the more you silence being out of the book and cannot force you to listen, the more you silence, the weaker it becomes of you cannot tell the difference people lose truth of the world occurring and into ways people lose and as they believe for lives and like people say really I think don't hear about telling those but as we those then enlarge the mission makes it because it's as enough civil war and that the like I mean what's been other than the strange your disaster much number of but it comes to people who are all the the success of a few of who do watches and will ever expected and it tries years to do the year country because knows the difference between what is right for you. Inner voice courage because it often leads you away from toward the unknown and the unknown feels frightening, but it also holds everything you have ever wanted or voice of life is. You'll never guide you toward a life is smaller that will never guide you self-betrayal, never guide you that self-connection will diminish more your great own people grow you towards self-betrayal than your environments because Nancy was never you ever wanted and the truth is you not initially purpose. If you choose to give for fear or no term is I on yours knowing. The real danger is not the world outside it, is the moment you stop believing that your inner voice deserves to be heard, because once you stop trusting yourself, you become vulnerable to the expectations of others, and you begin to mold your life around their opinions instead of your own desires, and you end up chasing goals that never belonged to you, living stories that were never for you, and trying to of yourself that feels safe but not safe, and to become a written for you and trying to have an add alive. But when you return to your inner voice, when you start honoring its guidance, something powerful happens. Your life slowly, real energy, that become decisions become energy and you becomes clearer and longer. Else is someone a spirit and you are no gonna betraying to feel a sense of peace because you are and you be realigned and your 10 truthkins are finally walking toward a life that feels like yours fully and complete. Pain, failure, and disappointment are experiences that every human being encounters, yet most people misunderstand them and treat them as punishments instead of teachers. And because of this misunderstanding, they run from difficulty, they hide from challenges, and they avoid anything that might expose them to discomfort, not realizing that in doing so, they also avoid growth, transformation, and the discovery of their own strength and wind. You silence that self, you silence the voice that could guide you toward a life that feels meaningful. And I love every person. Hassan has a unique presence that you light be a cannot. And when you suppress that lend and you rob the world of something blend, you not be duplicated. You knew were that to bull you can. Give and you rob yourself of the chance to live a life that belongs to you instead of a life shaped by fear or expectations or toward the opinions of people who will not walk your journey for you. And as most people are not living their version, they think others will own lives. They are living the truth and approve because are not very worthy because of that they feel empty even when they appear successful, they feel disconnected even when they are surrounded by others, and they feel tired even when they have done nothing physically exhausting because pretending to be someone you are not is the heaviest burden a human being can carry. Needs the version of you that is unfiltered, untrue, unpolished, unapologetic, because it's magnetic, it pulls the right people toward you, it opens the right doors, its opportunities, the knuckle of pin 4, and invisible bees, and when the exhausting cycle of purple for me 4, and a freezing for the secret doors that you never brings peace, and Chagamule that whatever brings peace, you from the fruit sept and settle of light, and the always to be true university, and not permanent, and not lingers your truthful for upward, show up, and use of you, will not believe. But there are other copies that we have. Your authenticity, and some people will prefer the version of you that stayed quiet and agreeable and small because it made them comfortable, but you were not born to make others comfortable. You were born to evolve, to express, to rise. And every time you choose truth over fear, you reclaim. Another piece of who you are meant to be the moment you stop apologizing for your dreams, your voice, your passion, your boundaries, your identity, your story. Your desires, everything in your life begins to realign. Because the universe responds to authenticity with clarity and momentum, and people who respect your truth will begin to appear, because showing up as your true self is an act naturally filters out what is not meant for you and makes space for what is. When you hide your true self, you attract experiences that are with your spirit, but when you stand in authenticity, you attract your soul opportunities that harness where your gifts pan without shrinking. And because it is the moment as in we stop surviving and this shift becomes the turning point and start with the mode of your life begin and start pinning varving and then you realize relationships that match the entract renditionships that to choose yourself, your true self, is not something you discover. It is something you uncover by peeling away years of doubt, fear, conditioning, and expectations. Let that self come forward. You begin to feel a sense of freedom that no achievement or applause could ever replace, because of becoming the person to be. And nothing is more powerful than standing in your true truth, unapologetically real. Open your the powerfully MAO and your presence of your strength with your heart. You as a rewriting creation shading forward alive, because the prick snuff story be always in you or always mang is more limited than becoming the cunning for choice. Should be always and once you're that self. For gifts, truth, and create gap to narratives that were created by past failures, old fears, childhood, the opinions others are of others, and they convince themselves that the version of they are experiencing now, if they are doing experiencing now, when they were ever how is the how it believes spirit first alive, they're quiet, they stop trying, they stop dreaming, because of that popping through the dreaming action that are when you will lines of when you open it within the simulation when you don't know the belief to was dip come into Tuesday, it was your really because of your the past that thing idea that if your stories you different blank page and this is how and navs and never and line trapped in your radio of mistake, but that you is to evolve, and many people may have your entire mindset shifts, because you begin to see possibilities where you once saw limitations, and opportunities where you saw dead ends. People stay stuck not because they lack potential, but because they no longer a story serves them, a story that about who they think they must be, a story about what they cannot do, a story built fear instead of truth. And these stories become walls that surround them, walls made from memories, pain, insecurities, and assumptions that have never been challenged. And when you choose to rewrite your story, you begin breaking down those walls piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. And each time you let go of an old belief, you make space for something new, something stronger, something more aligned with the person you are becoming. Rewriting your story does not mean pretending the past never happened. It means refusing to let the past decide your future. It means taking the lessons, the wisdom, the strength, and leaving behind it, the shame, the zing, the doubt, the fear of empowerment over vivid growth, over stagnation, over limitation, pick that everytation, and doubt. It means choosing live victim. You make a decision that honors your future self. Instead of your fearful self, you shift the direction of your life towards something greater. And this is how transformation begins, but not with drained choices. If your day, your life starts to reflect the person you chooses, and the small braid gestures to choose to be. Person you choose to be are never too late, too broken, too lost, or too far behind to create a new chapter. And the world is filled with who found their purpose after connected people, with people who rebuilt their confidence after seasons of failure, people who reinvent health. Everywhere else than truth try again. Half of it was believed their strategy was the word only sees the final decision and but the light and the quite finished decision be visionism and visionless. And again, the life years of feeling distrove. Again, and toppers that being happy if you can distrove. Your story becomes powerful the moment you take ownership of it, the moment you stop waiting for someone else to do, and instead decide to yourself to read the pen that was meant to be confusion from rather it was all that lace of possibility, writing from a place of strength rather, as you be declaiming writing your hands and be have you or approve of when you choose salve towards you, and then confusion to salve you is that premier story is that you do not not need validation. You do not need a perfect plan. You only need willingness. You only need courage. You only need belief that your life is still capable and extraordinary, that thing extraordinary. And the moment everything with you begins to shift, because the story yourself start telling yourself the story, and you become the thing. Your movement you begins to shift, and you capable of become the future, and of the author and protects your truth beneath the strength. And a beautiful part we have this entire journey come truth. You were not born simple truth. You were a quiet life, or a life fear, hesitation, or a life shaped by temptations of others. You were born to live fully, to feel deeply, to rise boldly, and to grow into the highest expression of who you were, voting for yourself, to be your own lady. In every moment you spend doubting yourself, shrinking yourself, dimming your light, or because life is not pleasant. For promise, truly living, if you have through the word of present, but not awake existing, but born expectations of how awake existing will give it high expectation, or the expectation in town. The message is what we have. Rich area shift and strength. Your purpose is anchor per cause itself. But now before breaking, you know, sentence then is life with your reasons to stay, is your grace life. And the world will always offer you reasons to continue every day. And the working method was without them, because you're every not a roller spirit, will listen with no intuition and come to you. Now you never live a death that refuse to purpose, choose not possess the person looking in the hand by reading over again, to choose a right side of it. And you never heard you can teach me enough of the perfect bend, and associating itself choose like choose courage, you choose, you can to teach you not but for bouts and moments. It was meant disappointment. I'm going to get it. Cannot be defeated, and a soul that refuses to settle for anything less than the fullness of life itself. Person you choose to be are never too late, too broken, too lost, or too far behind to create a new chapter, and the world is filled with who found their purpose after connected people, with people who rebuilt their confidence after seasons of failure, people who reinvent health, world else than truth try again. Half of it was believed their strategy was the word only sees the final decision, but the light and the quality finish decision, be visionism and visionless, and again the life years of feeling distrove, again and toppers that being happy if you can of. Your story becomes powerful the moment you take ownership of it, the moment you stop waiting for someone else to you, and instead decide as yourself to read the pen that was meant to be confusion from rather it was all that place of possibility, writing from a place of strength rather, as you be declining writing your hands, and be have you or approve of when you choose style towards you, and then can choose and decide you is that premier story is that you do not need validation. You do not need a perfect plan. You only need willingness. You only need courage. You only need belief that your life is still capable and extraordinary, that thing extraordinary. And the moment everything with you begins to shift, because the story yourself start telling yourself the story, and you become the thing. Your movement you begins to shift, and you capable of become the future, and of the author and protects your truth beneath the strength. And a beautiful part we have this entire journey come truth. You were not born simple truth. You were a quiet life, or a life fear, hesitation, or a life shaped by temptations of others. You were born to live fully, to feel deeply, to rise boldly, and to grow into the highest expression of who you were, voting for yourself, to be your own lady. In every moment you spend doubting yourself, shrinking yourself, dimming your light, or because life is not pleasant. For promise, truly living, if you have through the word of present, but not awake existing, but born expectations of how awake existing will give it high expectation, or the expectation in town. The message is what we have. Rich area shift and strength. Your purpose is anchor per cause itself. But now before breaking, you know, sentence then is life with your reasons to stay, is your grace life. And the world will always offer you reasons to continue every day. And the working method was without them, because you're every not a roller spirit, will listen with no intuition and come to you. Now you never live a death that refuse to purpose, choose not possess the person looking in the hand by reading over again to choose a right side of it. And you never heard you can teach me enough of the perfect bend, and associating itself choose like choose courage, you choose, you can to teach you not but for bouts and moments. It was meant disappointment. I'm going to get it. Cannot be defeated, and a soul that refuses to settle for anything less than the fullness of life itself.